It's a symptom of trauma. So those are part of the, so that's why you get flashbacks so easily, because the traumatic memories and images are located in a different part of the brain. You can feel numb or lose interest in things that the person used to care about. As I said earlier about emotions, you can feel almost like you're dead on the inside, which actually, when a lot of people, particularly men that I meet who are just numb and they feel dead on the inside, that's a setup for the spirit of suicide to say, well, see, you're already dead on the inside. You might as well just end your life, because, and here's the other twist to this. Many times the medications, particularly the Veterans Administration, gives to veterans to help them with their post-traumatic stress actually make them feel like zombies. And so therefore that adds to that whole feeling of feeling numb and losing interest. Obviously depression, anxiety, being jittery or irritable, being easily startled or raging is also a part of the process of having unhealed trauma. This is true particularly for military as well as first responders. But also, you don't have to be a first responder to have this. Thinking that you're always in danger or being on alert for potential threats. First responders and military are trained that when you walk into a room, you scan the room for threats. And they never give you an off button for that. So you're doing it almost subconsciously, which is why many people with severe trauma have difficulty sitting in a room like this. They have difficulty sitting with their backs to the door in a restaurant. And many times they just won't go into large gatherings because of that issue that's going on with them. Experiencing chronic nerve pain is a big symptom of unhealed trauma. Much fibromyalgia and much generalized chronic nerve pain is caused by unhealed trauma. And this is how that works. So you have in your brain this little gland called the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for your fight, flight, or freeze response. When you are approached by something threatening, that amygdala will fire off and send a signal down to your adrenal glands, which are on top of your kidneys. Your adrenal glands will pour forth two hormones. One is adrenaline, the other one is cortisol. We all love adrenaline. It gets you up in the morning, but also cortisol is the stress hormone. And your stress hormone helps you get through moments of stress. It helps you perform really well in stress. The problem is when you get an overload of cortisol in your system, it creates an inflammation in your nervous system. Therefore, you experience chronic nerve pain. So it's the fibromyalgia or chronic nerve pain is actually coming from the overload of cortisol. Well, why is somebody carrying unhealed trauma? Why is it that their amygdala is firing off? Because of the traumatic images and memories that they always feel like they're in danger. So it's constantly firing off over and over again. And it's a big deal in first responders. It's a big deal in military people in particular. But it can be for anybody. I had a woman who was a pastor she was in her mid-50s, and I was doing a charismatic United Methodist conference. And at the end of my message, they brought her up. She was in a wheelchair. And she had so much fibromyalgia in her body that she could barely walk. And as she came forward and they asked me to pray for her, I asked her the question, how long have you had this fibromyalgia? And was there something traumatic that took place, before the onset of this? And she said 6 years. I said, okay. I said, what happened 6 years or more ago? And she began to cry. And she said, well, I lost 2 of my grandchildren in an automobile accident 7 years ago. And it was so traumatic for her that she was still carrying both the grief and the trauma from that. So as we helped her, you can't pray away grief, but you can break the power of trauma. And so we did. We broke the power of trauma over her life. And all of a sudden, she began to feel electricity running up and down her body like a roller. And she finally kicked off the sides of her wheelchair, and she stood up and she started walking back and forth, and eventually started running around the place. And I think she got healed. Matter of fact, I know she got healed, and is still ministering and still doing well. So that's can be. And the first testimony I'm going to show you has to do with somebody who was suffering with chronic nerve pain.